AASA is pleased to bring you this webinar with NGS. NGS is a national leader providing full-service consultation, project management, design, and installation for large projects that include security films and barriers, energy-efficient window films, architectural wraps, printed signage, and graphics. It is my pleasure to introduce today's presenters, James Beal and Dwight Satterfield. James Beal, CEO for NGS, is a leading expert in glazing security solutions and specializes in helping companies evaluate and implement building envelope security technologies. His experience comes from more than 15 years of industry experience and co-founding NGS, the nation's largest and fastest growing glazing, film, and security solutions company. His customer-first approach has helped him become the go-to glazing security consultant for multiple Fortune 500 companies. Dwight Satterfield is the Deputy Superintendent for Decatur City Schools in Decatur, Alabama, and he oversees safety and student services in the district. Mr. Satterfield is a 30-year veteran of education in Alabama, including coaching, teaching, building level administration, and central office administration. He has also served on numerous leadership and state committees, including the Alabama Attorney General's School Task Force and the Alabama Department of Education School Safety Task Force. Most recently, he was appointed to the Alabama State Legislative School Safety Advisory Commission. Take it away, James.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to present today. We appreciate the opportunity to talk to administrators, superintendents, and security professionals alike on what the options are out there and how to educate people to what they need relative to what's out there, as opposed to just what people are telling them or introducing to them. I think it's really important that we raise the awareness, especially in today's climate. And so on that note, we're going to talk about glass. Glass is one of the weakest links in a security profile for a building in physical security. Most people know about cameras, access control, even security guards or school resource officers, but very few people know about laminated glass or ballistic performance glass, access denial solutions, or fragmentation retention films, security films. And it's really important that we talk about those today, because again, you see more and more that the fail point in those layers of security can be the glass, and that's something that is important. I do want to, at this time, note that we're going to ask a question. So we're going to poll people, and that question would be, other than delayed entry, what benefit of security film intrigues you the most? Security window film. So again, other than delayed entry, what benefit of an applied film, security film, would intrigue you the most? So they'll throw that up on the screen. You can answer those questions, and we'll talk about those answers. So as it relates to glass, one of the things that came up and has come up is, well, we'll just send our children to private school. Private school is safer. And unfortunately, the Nashville tragedy demonstrated for everybody that nobody is safe or secure or is going to be, untouched by this tragedy, to these active shooters. And when you look at what happened, and we don't need to show the video or anything again, because it is traumatic, but essentially the perpetrator came up, shot the glass, bent down, and walked right in. So even though those doors may have been locked, it didn't matter. And again, this really exemplifies that the glass can be the weakest link. And again, Sandy Hook, same thing. So within seconds or minutes, they're in the building, and time is your greatest friend. And we'll talk a little bit about that, response times, as we get through the presentation, because what we're ultimately trying to do is buy time. And that's another key element of understanding what the options are out there for you, so that that you're not overpaying or overbuilding a solution that you don't really need. And really the name of the game with school districts and government entities is, how do I secure as much surface area on as many buildings as possible with a solution that's really going to match my response time? And that's what we'll talk a little bit more about today here. So window safety and security survey that we ran with Campus Safety really was telling, but it didn't really tell us things that we didn't know from feedback we get from our clients and from the industry at large, and that is that glass is destined to fail. First responders aren't enough, and natural disasters are a growing concern. I mean, obviously with the weather today around the country, different thing, but windborne debris. You've got tornado shelters, hurricanes. You've got all of these different things that are happening, and glass can be the Achilles heel there. So window safety and security is really a hot topic that we need to all be mindful of. So with that being said, what do you do? How do you look at your glazing? Well, we look at it as a tiered approach, just as any security professional would look at a building and physical building security as a layered approach. We look at glazing the same way, and really kind of to simplify it, right? Keep it simple for the end user. We break it down into tiers. Tier 1, which is your entry level minimum recommendation, which is what the Sandy Hook Advisory Commission, Federal Commission of School Safety, and others have mentioned, is an applied safety film on the interior surface of the glass, or what we would call the safe side of the glass versus the attack side. You also have to have an attachment system, okay? And that would be the tier 1. Tier 2 would be that same interior applied attachment system with an exterior applied film, because that helps keep the glass in place and keep more mass between you and the bad guy. So we find that that's essentially twice the cost, but 3 times the performance. So kind of keep that number as a rule of thumb there. So there's a great value there for entranceways, or what we call zone 1. And then there's tier 3, which is access denial. So you've got delay, denial, and ballistic. And so kind of remember those terms. So what am I looking to do? I'm delay, deny, or do I need ballistic performance? Okay. And I think too often we see that people are being pressed into, oh, you need ballistic this and ballistic that. Understand the cost, the practicality, the lead time of these solutions all play into that. I do believe there is a benefit to have a safe room in a school where you have a ballistic enclosed area, but that makes sense for an area, not a district-wide program, because of cost, lead time, all the different things we talked about. So we'll go a little bit more in depth into those, into these different tiers here as we go through the presentation. So safety and security film, why is it so beneficial as a tier 1 or tier 2 opportunity? Well, simply put, it's cost effective, okay? It's a fraction of the cost of some of the denial and some of the ballistic. From a cost standpoint, you're talking about tier 1 in the $14 to $16, going up to ballistic that can be in the $150 to $300 per square foot. So there's a big delta there between those. It's quickly deployed. In other words, you get surveyed, you issue a purchase order. Within weeks, you can have a team out installing the product, securing the glass. So that, with security, time, again, is something that comes into consideration. How quickly can I secure my building, and what delay time can I achieve with that application? So how does security film work? So security film is basic, as the technology that's out there today is a polyester. And so every major manufacturer has polyester in different construction types. They'll have the 4 mil glued to a 4 mil, which makes an 8 mil, an 8 mil glued to a 7 mil, and so on and so forth. And that multiply construction is that then has an adhesive, a pressure sensitive adhesive. Pressure means sensitive to the touch, so it sticks onto the glass, and it's usually a wet applied system on the glass. It has an abrasion resistant coating on the outside, so that way essentially you can touch it, you can clean it, what have you. There are the exterior versions of security film. 3M has the S70X, and why it's important to note that not all security films are made to be installed on the outside, because the UV inhibitors in any applied film are in the adhesive, okay? And why is that? That's because that's the first thing the sun hits when it goes through the glass. If the film is installed on the inside, sun hits the adhesive, so you want those UV inhibitors there. Well, if you flip that around and put that on the outside, you're going to cook that exterior layer, and you're going to see it break down, crack, haze, fade, turn yellow. That's what happens when you see yellow polycarbonate for plastics. So that exterior film has UV inhibitors in the top coat and the adhesive. So very important that you understand that. And on the interior side, we're going to talk a little bit about the 3M Ultra 800. It's a microwoven tear construction. It's a patented construction, and it's one of a kind. It's a category maker, and it resists tearing when breached. It is important that no matter what security film you apply, that you have that attachment system on there, which is a structural adhesive. Dow Corning makes a 995. 3M has their own impact protection adhesive, which applies on the film, on the 3M film, what have you. And we recommend at least a ½ inch on the glass and a ½ inch on the frame where applicable, because not every frame profile will allow you to do that. So let's talk about safety and security film myths. There's a lot of information out there, and I can promise you it's not all good. So let's talk right about it. The film is bulletproof. Okay, absolutely not. There is no manufactured polyester in the world that has ballistic performance. I want to be very clear about that. In fact, the International Window Film Association has published a statement saying that anybody marketing their product as a ballistic film, you should be very weary of. Essentially, what those individuals are doing is taking a polyester, applying it to a ½ inch plate glass or various combinations of glass to achieve that ballistic performance, which may not be the conditions on a school district. I have not been on a campus that has ½ inch plate glass. So be very weary of that. Myth number 2, film is impenetrable. Okay. Film will not stop. We can't say anything, even a polycarbonate or a ballistic glass application will stop anything, because we don't know what is going to attack or go through that glass. That's why active shooter simulations and active shooter testing and all that, they're all snowflakes. Every situation is different. Every attack is different. So you don't know what the glass and film is going to be attacked with or by whom, using what tool. So you can't say it's impenetrable. What we do know is that the application of film will delay a breach. We know this. We've been installing film at National Retail for smash and grab for 15 years, well before the school active shooter phenomenon became a thing. So we have a vast experience of what works, what doesn't work, and roughly what sort of delay you can achieve. So this graph here illustrates the increase in violent activity with and without guns as it relates to public buildings, schools, what have you. And this information, this data is from Homeland Security and Defense. I don't think we need to really spend a lot of time on there. I think we all are aware that these events are increasing in the tempo and the veracity of what's happening out there. So again, at this day and age, we now see people are looking very closely at their glass and glazing, whether it be homegrown terrorism, bomb blasts. We've seen some of this, the gas explosion in the hotel in Texas that just happened, petrochemical storm, all of that stuff. The majority of injuries from bomb blasts and things of that nature are for flying glass. So the fragmentation film serves many purposes there when it's applied properly. We talked a little bit about this, the safety and security window film recommendations, and they're far-reaching. So, the final report, the Sandy Hook Advisory Commission recommended that safety film or a breach-resistant safety film, laminated glass, or any sort of improved, enhanced security glazing would have reduced potentially the loss of life, because that perpetrator, they broke through that window, opened the door, were in very quickly. The final report of the Federal Commission on School Safety recommended safety film, and PASS recommends safety film. So again, as a minimum measure, and to enhance the security and keep the bad guys out, again, buy time, is to apply a blast resistant or a breach resistant security film. And the key there is resistant, it does not stop. So I want to make sure we're clear about that. That's why it's important you understand, what degree you need, what level of performance you need, which we can go into here in a little bit. So what are the alternatives to safety film? Essentially, you're looking at laminated glass, bullet resistant glass, access denial technologies. There's some products out there now that are retrofits onto existing glass, polycarbonate panels, acrylic panels. There's a number of different solutions out there, and they perform very well. The question is, are they practical, and do you have the budget for it, and do you have the time for it? And that's a question that every district will have to ask and when they're looking at their security funds, the bond, the grant, the operating budget, whatever the case may be. The problem with laminated glass and bullet resistant glass, one of the problems, another inherent issue, is if it's broken or breached, the replacement cost is pretty extensive. So again, it's the life cycle of these products and the durability becomes a problem as well if you have to replace them. Whereas safety film replacing on an individual window is low cost. So there is a cost benefit there that is included in when you buy the security film. These other alternatives can be costly. Again, very effective, but again, you have to evaluate what makes sense for your district or organization. So why 3M? Why do we recommend 3M? Our firm, NGS, is the largest 3M dealer in the United States. We touched 11,000 projects this year. I'll talk about that a little bit more further in the presentation. But again, 3M is an innovator. They have patented products that are category makers. 3M is the only manufacturer that has its own ultra-woven security film with its own impact protection adhesive, which cures faster than Dow and has better elongation. So what does that mean? That means as soon as you put it up, you're going to cure almost twice as fast, which matters. And then if somebody does try to breach, and it's that pushing and kicking and that cyclical nature of an attack is where this multi-woven technology really becomes very effective. Because if you have a two-ply technology, a 4 mil and a 4 mil, and you glue it together, once that's punctured, it tears like a piece of paper. Whereas this 3M product, think like a screen on a window, like a mesh screen. Those individual interwoven layers have to be broken one at a time. So that's where it gains its strength. It's a very effective system, and that's why we like it, with a comprehensive warranty on the attachment and the product. This is a cross-section of that microwoven layer, so you can see just how many layers are in this product. So it's, even though it's an 8 mil product, it outperforms most 14, 15 mil plus security films because of the ability to resist tearing. Again, with polyester, traditional polyester applications, they rely on thicker to get more strength. And the problem with thicker is cost. And then also, once it's punctured, it still tears. That doesn't really help it when it tears. And when you're talking about an active shooter event, it's being shot. So therefore, you breach, the film is being penetrated, and then the subsequent attacks or hits could then easily tear that product. So the 3M Impact Protection Adhesive, this is a cross-section. One of the great things about this attachment adhesive is that essentially creates a membrane. It glues the film and the glass to the frame, and we tape and tool it. So you get exactly that triangular bead, low odor, so very easy to put in. After students let out, the next morning, you're fine. It skins up within 24 hours, or skins over, starts to harden. So when they, if they go to touch it, shouldn't be an issue there. So it's a very quick application, very strong, and we do it all 4 sides on the inside, and in some applications we'll do it on the outside where we apply the exterior S70X for additional strength of that system from popping out. The interior exterior, the tier 2, we call that tri-shield, simply put, because you have 3 parts. You have an interior, which is the safe side. You've got the exterior on the attack side. You have that structural adhesive. And this cross-section shows you what that looks like. Again, twice the cost, 3 times the performance. I think that's probably a pretty simple rule of thumb. And that is the predominant application that we apply on doors and entryways for schools. And then the ancillary areas around what we call zone 2s, zone 1 being entrances, zone 2s being perimeter glazing. We'll do a tier 1. So tier 1, tier 2 combinations, or tier 1 throughout the district, depending on what the budget looks like. So one of the things we want to talk about is response time. And I want to ask the question here, what is the estimated response time that you think is currently in place at your district or organization? And this will be a question that we popped up here for you guys to answer, because that does matter. Understanding what that response time is critical, because if somebody comes in and sells you a denial product that is $70 a square foot, okay, versus a tier 2, which is $22 a square foot, that'll buy you up to 5 to 6 minutes and your response time is 4 minutes, do you need to pay the $80 a square foot or $70 a square foot? Those are the things you have to ask yourself. And it may not make sense, and you may be able to use that extra, those surplus funds or the funds you didn't spend on other areas of that layered security system that you were not able to get in the first go round of funding the bond or what have you, cameras, card technology, access control, things of that nature. So, and again, per the slide, U.S. Secret Service National Threat Assessment studied these incidents, and 32% of responders between 1 and 5 minutes to arrive. 27% of first responders arrive between 5 and 10 minutes. And in only one case, responded a minute or less. So really what this is saying is you really need to buy yourself up to about 5 minutes. So anywhere from the 3 to 5 minutes it will kind of get you the sweet spot there based on that data. Okay, so what we're going to do here is show a quick video, and this is an active shooter simulation that we did in partnership with Houston ISD. And I think it's important to note here that this demo is not to demonstrate ballistic performance. We are not in any way saying that this will stop or slow down bullets. What we're trying to do is simulate an active shooter event. Think Nashville, okay? So if they come up and shoot and then try to gain entry, what does that look like when we have the same window specimen types, the same window construction with the tier 1 interior only, and then tier 2, so you can see what that looks like in the most controlled environment that we can achieve. This first specimen is no security film, 1/4-inch tempered glass, standard commercial. This is your national. In window construction, tier 1. Example, or side impact protection adhesive. Here, breach defined as enough that somebody could essentially. Here too, inside applied. This is actually a tinted version, so a solar control version of that Ultra 800 with an exterior weatherable S7DX. Here, obviously, I'm printing out a little higher here, but eventually, proven performance would encapsulate the class. Next demo is the door to demonstrate how the performance is on the door. And again, this is Tri-Shield inside and outside, Ultra 800 impact protection adhesive on the inside, and exterior 7mm 70X on the outside. So again, consistent performance. And by the way, you see the same sort of performance profile at retail. So these numbers don't surprise us, even though they're not shooting at retail, but they're using other tools. So let's talk about tier 3. This would be the access denial side. And this is a product category that really is coming to the forefront over COVID 2020 with the civil unrest and what have you. We helped and partnered with a manufacturer to bring a access denial technology called Riot Glass, where it is a panel system, polycarbonate panel system in front of a window system. So it's essentially a window shield in front, has an anodized aluminum framing system. So it looks like a anodized standard storefront system. So you really can't tell it's on the glass, and it performs very well. It's expensive, but when we have clients that don't want the glass to break, or they don't want somebody to get in, therein lies the denial, and it works. And you can see we have some videos to demonstrate that. The design is really neat because it absorbs the energy in that base. As you can see, that cross section here, there is a snap-on cap that snaps in place to hide the security screws that anchor the polycarbonate panel. And that polycarbonate panel is basically formulated at a slower flow rate in manufacturing, so it's stronger. So it's not an off-the-shelf Home Depot, Lowe's polycarbonate, and it has what they call an SR, scratch-resistant coating, and it's got UV coating on it too. So it does hold up to the elements on the outside. Very durable product, and we have it deployed all across the United States for national retail, school districts, federal buildings, things of that nature, courthouses, as you can imagine. Now, this is a video of a combination, a hybrid application with Riot Glass and Tri-Shield. So the security film on the outer windows, the Riot Glass on the main entryway doors, because those tend to be the main points of egress for the bad guys. So let's take a look at this. Broad daylight, comes up with a tire iron. No breach, no break, no problem. Emergency resources needed, and that therein lies the denial side of that. This is a sledgehammer attack on a Riot Glass application, one of our national accounts, Murphy Oil, and we caught this guy on camera, and you can see how the Riot Glass on the outside performs. The glass did break in this scenario, to be expected, because of the sheer force. You can see the door stiles flexing. Key is, bad guy didn't get in, and they didn't have to call an emergency port up service. So there you can see the damage, and this was an extreme scenario with a sledgehammer. With that attack, you don't typically see people show up with a sledgehammer, but over COVID, it got pretty interesting. And police response times actually were exacerbated because they prioritized responses to violent crimes. So that's where denial becomes more applicable. And this is something we talked about storm, windborne debris, things of that nature. Riot Glass has been tested to meet and pass Miami-Dade large missile impact. For those of you who don't know what large missile impact is, it's the code for glazing in a windstorm area about 100 miles inland from the coast. Any glazing 0 to 30 foot for new construction. And it's a combination of pressure cycling, wind, water, and impact. And this would be a 9-pound 2x4 traveling, at about I want to say 30 so or So what's interesting about this product is because you have that high degree of impact protection, it does become a good option in a high windborne storm area, coastal areas, and there are buckets of funding that this product and application will be applicable for because the emergency preparedness aspect of it. So Tier 4 ballistic, talk a little bit about that. One thing that a lot of people don't understand, and understandably so, it can get very complex. There's a lot of different things to think about as it relates to ballistic performance. There's what is the weapon, the grain type of the ammunition, the type of ammunition, the distance from the glass. You really don't need to know all of that. What you do need to know is that it gets very, very expensive and complicated to get a ballistic performance that achieves an assault rifle level protection. And I think most people misunderstand that. You have individuals that come out and sell ballistic performance when really the level 3 is the economical, and that's handgun. And what we've learned is that as it relates to active shooter events, there are a lot of handgun related events, but they tend to be in the office environment, which means the individual's already in the building. So hardening the glazing, certainly on the exterior, may not be applicable, but certainly on the interior, if you wanted to create sort of a safe room environment. That being said, when you look at schools, that the weapons used, as you see in the assault rifle type, and that glazing type is very expensive, very long lead times, and typically not practical to deploy district-wide. Here's an example of a level 4 ballistic installation that we did for DeKalb County, Georgia. And again, just to show you, it looks like normal glazing. It looks great. Kudos for DeKalb County for doing this at their entrances. Again, though, it's only up to a level 3 level of protection. And by the way, when you get into ballistic performance, you achieve very high degrees of denial and forced entry resistance. So you kind of check all those boxes. So from that standpoint, this is a very, very high degree of protection there. In some of these have been tested up to 20 minutes denial for an attacker with hammers and heavy tools when you get into the level 3, level 4 ballistics. Visual security, this is something that we should talk about that doesn't get talked about enough. And we do this for armed forces recruiting centers. We do this for schools. We do this for government. And that is you can use graphics to serve 2 functions, which is aesthetics and privacy. So you can see in the first picture on the top left corner, we did this in a library at an elementary school. And basically what you're trying to do is obscure at a glance how many people are in that room. So you're trying to limit the ability of an attacker to target a target-rich environment, a cafeteria, a library, things of that nature, without making it look like a prison. On the National Guard, that is a one-way perforated film, so that basically think like a bus wrap. So you can't see in during the day, but they can see out. So you can do that same thing on libraries, auditoriums, things of that nature. And there's lots of studies out there that demonstrate if an attacker can't see, whether that's forced entry theft at retail or active shooter, they typically don't target those areas because they don't know what's behind there. So something to think about. And then on the top right, you can see a very reflective one-way mirror film that was installed to hide, some construction behind those clear story windows. And then you can get into total opaque lifestyle graphics or things of that nature where you want to hide what's behind there completely. So there are lots of different options with the visual security that makes sense. This is a one-way mirror application. We do this a lot at schools, interior classrooms. The good thing about this application is, we see that a lot of classrooms and teachers will put stuff on the window that may not meet fire code. And this one-way mirror, again, when children or administrators or teachers shelter in place, they turn the lights off, the hallway lights are on. So wherever the greater source of light is where that individual will not be able to see in. So if they're in the hallway, lights are on, lights are off in the classroom, they won't see in, the classroom can see out. Unless they get really close up on the glass, you might be able to peek in a little bit, but again, you're really trying to buy time and have them make their mind up in a split second as to not trying to attack that particular area. So that's the benefit of the one-way mirror product. So just a little bit about NGS, and I've kind of dosed a few things along the way here. But what gives us the credibility to talk about security and the other applications? We are, again, the largest 3M dealer in the United States, only platinum tier dealer in the United States, 11,000 installations last year and projected again plus or minus this year. We have a dedicated K through 12 program with proprietary survey and assessment software specifically designed for campuses and properties that have multiple buildings on there, which are very effective. We are GSA Green Proving Ground finalists for carbon emissions reductions technologies for the federal government. And we have our own in-house engineering project management license from coast to coast. So we really are a total services provider for all of our customers from coast to coast. One of the things I think is important when talking to this audience, we have serviced 321 school districts nationally and about 200 of them in Texas, and that is district-wide program. So that puts us in the top tier, I believe the top school safety retrofit contractor for glazing in the United States. Talked a little bit about the zone survey approach. I think this is important when you're asking somebody to come out and survey your campus, is we want to be speaking the same language. And the Federal Commission on School Safety recommends using a zoned approach. So zone 1 is entrances. So when we talk about, when you want to harden your district against forced entry, your entrances are your priority. That's your zone 1. Zone 2 would be essentially perimeter glazing around the side, be it classroom, auditorium, cafeteria. And then zone 3 would be interior. And we map that out in our surveys so that you can clearly see. And our assessment software allows you to essentially sort by building, by zone, and by area. And we provide the associated area maps so you can see. So essentially, if you say, I have 50 buildings in my district, I want to know what the cost is to do tier 2 installation of safety film on only entrances. Well, we can go ahead with a couple of clicks and pare down that proposal per the contracting vehicle pricing. So we have multiple contracting vehicles to streamline procurement, and that'll essentially give you a report you can submit to purchasing. And then also for maintenance down the road, you can open that up and say, well, wait a minute, what if I want to add in the auditoriums or these other areas? You can just check the box, click them, it'll drop back in. Or if you wanted to pare it down to a specific building for budgeting purposes, a specific school, maybe you just want to look at the elementary schools first, that can all happen with a quick check of the box. So it is one of a kind. It's the only software out there for specifically K through 12 to be able to do that. And we get a lot of great feedback from our partners in K through 12 on that. I did mention the streamlined requisition. We do hold multiple contracting vehicles, federal contract, GSA contract on the cooperative purchase. And as you can see, state contracting vehicles, CMAS in California, a number of Texas co-ops, TIPS, Region 5, Tex buys, so on and so forth. So we do have a contracting vehicle, and we do believe that we have a very streamlined procurement. We don't charge for surveys. So from assessment to pricing to procurement to execution, we can provide that very quickly and efficiently from coast to coast. And here is a survey binder example. I talked about mapping the zone 2s, the zone 1s. So whether you talk to us or you talk to another contractor, it's important you understand how to quickly assess the areas in your district and on the building, whether they're zone 1, highest priority, are they zone 2? That's also important as it relates to qualifying for a grant. For example, in Texas, the school safety standards rule, it is entrances and adjacent glazing. Well, okay, you need to be able to separate that out, because if you have other budget or bucket of money that you want to do other areas, you want to be able to basically separate that out, partition that out, and report that. We can do that on this software. And then if you want to know what that zone 2 area 5 is, you just look at that overhead map for that specific building, and it'll tell you as it's numbered around the floor plan. So now I think we want to introduce Decatur City Schools and Dwight. So Dwight can talk about his experience and why he went down the path with the selection that he did to secure that school district. So Mr. Dwight.
Well, thank you, James. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity today to speak to my fellow educators and superintendents across the U.S. But Yes, been very pleased here in Decatur with what we have done with the glazing solutions and security films here in Decatur. I think you actually had a slide that depicted one of our high schools that had a walkover 5 years ago, and was kind of my first introduction to using window film for security aiding, was securing that walkover of our students. Navigated that through the day to kind of protect their identity, see how many students were in the crossover during the day. So that was kind of my first introduction to that. Then when you go back and look at the things that happened in Sandy Hook and the Covenant School in Nashville, obviously it became a more important role as I looked from an operational standpoint here in Decatur. So it's the standards that the security and delayed entry film provides to us is really important. It's really the invisible barrier for schools. As you mentioned, glass is the weakest link. Those of you that work in operations, our architects love glass in our buildings. They bring a great aesthetic look to our facilities. And so, I don't see a lot of that changing because we want our schools to be inviting and welcoming to our students and to our neighborhoods and communities. But bringing that invisible barrier in will really help. One of the things that, I want to say, I think we can all agree that the Uvalde situation really brought a focus on the unsecured entry points. And a lot of people focus on that. A lot of your security personnel, your police departments, SROs, and those that you engage with in securing your buildings and your faculties and staff. Well, one of the first things that they look at when they survey a campus is your locking mechanisms and what you have in terms of that layered approach. But that unsecured entry point is obviously a weak point. But one of the things that you don't think about, and they may not think about when they engage you in looking at this layered approach, is the glass around your entry points, as James mentioned, your zone 1 areas. So when we looked at it in Decatur, we looked at our zone 1s. We also took it to some zone 2 places to give us time. So often in the layered approach, we have that air chamber secured vestibule that we bring individuals in to our school during the day. And often that office or administrative team office will be near that point. They may have an exterior window, a zone 2 place right near that. And, that's where our zone 2 filming became important, because as James mentioned, one of the first questions that you want to look at when you're looking at what's right for my school system is to look at your response time. I think nationally, most of our schools, given your emergency operation plans, take anywhere between 35, 40 seconds to a minute to get your building in a secured lockdown position. So buying that time, delaying that entry is very important.
Yeah, that's right. And I appreciate it. Thanks again, Dwight, for jumping on today. Question I would have, because you have obviously right now, school administrators are absolutely being inundated with solicitations from contractors around the country. In fact, we're seeing, contractors that aren't even in the glazing scope all of a sudden jumping in and offering security films and security glazing, things of that nature. What ultimately led you to the decision to engage with and use NGS in your project?
Well, again, the national reputation that your company brings, bringing the 3M endorsed products to the forefront for us was very important, but also enjoyed working with your staff. I found them very engaging and understanding to the needs of our operations here in Decatur.
Well, I appreciate that feedback. I mean, obviously, we always want to know what we're doing well and how we can improve and really try to look at it through the eyes of the customer and the end user. We like to call it the frictionless process, right? How do we make it help you guys hit the easy button? So thank you for that.
And I would say this: there are a lot of things that we do on the operations side of schools that have to wait when students are out of the facility, whether they be during breaks, during the summer and things like that. And I really went into it with that approach. Hey, let's start this. And I worked with your team, and we looked at doing after hours, evenings, weekends, and things like that. But as I found when we started this process, we were able to quickly shuffle and move and speed the installation process for our 22 facilities because they really were not a disruption during the day. Very much like your custodial staff being in your building. What I found with the team from NGS, we really didn't know that they were there. They knew where my entry points were and where students would be coming and going throughout the day, and they worked around that, and they cleaned up after themselves, and really we shifted from after hours operations to install to working completely during operations of our school, which sped up the process.
Yeah, I think one of the things that the points of the questions we get are, how disruptive is this going to be? They're concerned about, and rightly so, concerned about any fumes or noises or things of that nature. And to your point, it is very minimally disruptive, if at all. And we can sequence the installs around activity as well, right? Obviously, we're not going to work on an entrance when schools are, students are coming into the building or exiting the building, right? So we can work around all that stuff.
Right. Even with the window glazing, putting the adhesive around the inside or the protective side of the glass. Out of 22 facilities, I had only a handful of our young students that put their fingerprint in the glazing. The staff did a great job of marking where the glazing had taken place. And really was not disruptive at all for us. I was pleasantly surprised for that. And I really think our parents appreciated seeing the process. That was one of the things that was really surprising for me. The parents seeing that going in and ask a few questions, what's going on? And without going into details, we talked about the situation at the Covenant School in Nashville and Sandy Hook, especially the Covenant School. I know you showed had a clip of that up there, or a still shot of that. From the time that individual approached from the sidewalk to they fired through that vestibule, that side vestibule of the school, they fired through that from approaching to their shots to gain entry till they set foot into that vestibule was 21 seconds. So, as a operations deputy superintendent, what I looked at was what was our response time to a felony, to an intruder incident at school, taking consideration how long it would take us to get each facility into a lockdown or secure position. And that may vary. I have one school that has a high number of students that are special needs, work in a mobility program with walkers and gait trainers and things of that nature. Obviously, they're going to need a little more time. So I didn't have to take the same approach with their building and their facility as I did some of my other schools. But, to gain entry into a school with 21 seconds, that's below the amount of time that it takes our schools to get into a lockdown or secure situation for their building. So, really putting that invisible barrier up, taking that a layered approach, give us time to get our buildings in lockdown. So that delayed entry was very important.
That's a great point. And it's uncanny how close in time that event was to our demo with Houston ISD, where it shows 20 seconds breach with no treatment, right? 20 seconds, 21 seconds. So it really does align there. I do want to take a second here, Dwight, and talk a little bit about Decatur City Schools. If you could share a little bit about the district, and then I think we want to show an elevation to talk about there as well.
Right. Well, we're the most diverse district in Alabama in terms of demographics. We have 18 schools, 22 facilities, roughly 8,500 students, right at what we work with in terms of NGS, 17,000 square foot of glass. I did the tier 1. I think it would be easily approachable to go back in locations and do the tier 2 to put that Tri-Shield in there. We started with the tier 1, been very happy with that. But, you know, again, when we looked at all the scenarios, and I think you're going to come to a slide in a few minutes, it was just financially the right approach for us to take to install this invisible barrier to add to the other layers that we have. And whether it be instructional software or school security, I think you've mentioned this, inundated with calls, emails, pamphlets every day. There's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there, and I am not a operations superintendent that buys a lot of products and a lot of gadgets. Okay, but I found that the security film, the delayed entry protocols, added to my layer approach, and it really didn't affect my aesthetics of my school.
Yep, thank you for that. Dwight, I think we have a question in the chat here. I've been prompted to ask from Travis Sweeney, and I think it will be good to address this because I know we're running tight on time. Looks like the question is, we follow the ALICE protocol and instruct our students to run if they are able. Some of our administration have concerns that if we install this product on all ground level glass, how will they get out of the windows if need be? Some of our classrooms do have operational windows that can be opened without breaking them. Well, I'll go ahead and answer that question. There's a very simple answer to that. All of your doors that are to code have panic bars. So you just push the panic bar and you're out. That would be your answer there for your entrances. As far as your classrooms are concerned, typically, as I said, it's the exception, not the rule, that we are treating the classroom windows, so they could be broken if need be. If you do treat those classroom windows, there's many things you can do. You can identify a particular window as an exit window, not treat that window, and you can also they can be breached. There are tools that can breach quicker through that glass, but that's typically not been a concern or an issue. The bigger issue is keeping the bad guys out. And if you do need to get out, again, fire code reasons, the panic bars on those main points of egress are typically the way you would go. So
if I could add to that, James, at one time I was certified as an ALICE instructor. Those of you that don't understand ALICE, that's just an acronym for alert, lockdown, inform, communicate, and evacuate. Very similar to the run, hide, fight. But what we're seeing, and James mentioned in one of his early slides past, and that's the Partnership Alliance for Safer Schools. To put it in terms, those of you, all of you in the academic world, PASS is the NATE guideline for school safety. So those of you on the instruction side that are accustomed working with the NATE, PASS puts the curriculum together, really the foremost curriculum for school safety and operations. And they endorse a layer approach through using window film.
Yeah. So hopefully that's a good point. Hopefully that addresses that question, Travis. But certainly we can take questions. My contact information could be provided, and a copy of this presentation will be provided after the presentation. I think there's another question in here in the chat. You mentioned there are no window films on the market that are capable of stopping bullets, and those companies who you claim such are relying upon half-inch plate. However, I've observed firsthand Safe Haven Defense products stopping 38, 9mm, 40, 45, and even FN 5.7 on quarter-inch annealed glass. This is a product we've since installed in our schools. Are their products the exception to your assertion? No, they're not. Actually, their products. So to answer that question, Safe Haven Defense, depending on which product you purchase, because there's a couple of them, they have a triple layered 15 mil that you can apply that can achieve some small caliber ballistics to the degree that you're mentioning there. And I don't know what you paid per square foot, but again, it also depends on the glass type. The annealed glass performs better than tempered glass. Most schools and new construction have tempered glass. So the issue we have with those companies representing those products is there's a lot of variables that go into supporting or making their claims accurate, and they are not always present, right? So glass type, what's being applied, weapon type. And again, as I mentioned, unfortunately, what we're seeing with these active shooter events for K through 12, they're typically not, it's a combination of weapons, but the primary tends to be an assault rifle. So just want to make sure, again, that everybody is aware of that. So just something to share there.
Hey, James, can we bring up the slide? I think we have a slide of the auditorium.
Yes, right
at
there.
one of my high schools. You know, I think you all agree this building here is roughly 5 years old. You can see the entrance into the auditorium here. Aesthetically is very pleasing. One of the considerations that I looked at outside of the visual security of this, I look at replacing these 3 sets of doors. What I found from an operations standpoint, and again, we all go back in education, whether it's instructional software or school security, where do we get the biggest benefit from our dollars? Even changing those doors to solid core doors, which would have changed my aesthetics a little bit, I saved a third of the cost by doing the entire air chamber, air locking area than what it would have cost me to internally change just those doors to solid core doors. Then I would have still been left with the side lights that would have been without that barrier or that delayed system, which if you go back to the Covenant School or you go back to Sandy Hook, very easily, they could have taken something, shot out that side window, reached around and opened that panic bar to this building. So, you know, not only looking at it from a terms of the security side, from a cost standpoint, it was more effective to do this and also maintain the aesthetics.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? I think we have a few minutes here to wrap it up, and so I just want to address one more question here. DT Martin, Film on Doors is running a new issue related to SAM, sexual assault and molestation. They're recommending not blocking the view into classrooms to ensure student and staff safety. How would you defend this point? So essentially, you don't have to do a tinted or reflective film. Again, we've worked with districts where they have done clear film, but they've just made it's more of a security than a visual security. That's a decision and a selection that you'll have to make at the district level on what you want to do there. Again, there is no magic answer for, I don't want to use the term bullet, but there is no, magic answer here that one size fits all, because you really have to look at what are we trying to solve for, and what are the detriments of said that, but are those detriments worse, or is what we're solving for worse? So in essence, are we trying to solve for somebody, an active shooter, gaining entry or targeting, or are we trying to solve for another issue? So you really have to make that decision, like I said, at the district level, and educate yourself on what the options are, whether that's a clear, some sort of a visual deterrent or something along those lines. And then one other thing that I wanted to go back to the ballistic question, because I think this is a really important issue. Again, the IWFA has come out with a statement saying that there are no ballistic films. So that's not me saying that. That's the industry at large. And you can go to every polyester manufacturer out there, DuPont, 3M, Saint-Gobain, largest glass and glazing manufacturer in the world, and they will all tell you that there is no such thing as a ballistic performance polyester. You can use it for spalling. So the issue with companies like Safe Haven making those claims is that any performance is predicated on what they install their film to and how much of it they put on there, right? So it's you're going down a slippery slope there, and that's the issue with those. So I hope that clarifies that question. But I believe we're running out of time. And so in this presentation, just a couple of slides I want to point out. We do have a testimonial video on here from multiple districts, Texas, Florida, and Georgia, that have chosen safety and security films, 3M safety and security films, and their experience with it, why they chose it, why they chose NGS. And I think that's a really powerful video. And then some some testimonials on there from the directors of security, superintendents, what have you. And so that brings our presentation to a close right at 4 p.m. on the nose. So thank you all for the opportunity to present, and I'm happy to answer any questions after the fact. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions.
Hey,
And yes,
James, I'd like to say too, you know, we're, as educators, we're all in this together. Dwight Satterfield in Decatur, Alabama, Decatur City Schools. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you have an operations question, or if I could tell more about my experience with NGS, I'd be glad. Reach out to me. I'd be glad to help my fellow educators.